After the grand retelling, Baron had decided it was time to depart from the mines to relieve Glera. Tom had followed along as the large red got clear of all the people, hoping to get into some slightly more private questions. Baron clearly noticed, walking further away than he would have needed to before turning around, looking down at Tom. So... Yeah, sorry. I was just wondering. The city. Did you ever find out what did... that? No, sadly. Some claim it was the work of the Shadow Dragon that challenged me on the ship. Others claim it must have been the work of a powerful witch or even a Dogna. I've heard that one before. Puma didn't have much of them that he believed was true. Could you perhaps fill me in? Again, I have never seen one. The stories go that they are hideous grey monstrosities. They like it cold, dark and wet, and their command over the darker side of magic is beyond compare. So, kind of like a dire version of a unicorn. You could say that. I would not take a bet on the unicorn if it came to a fight, though, Baron replied flatly. I personally hope it was a Dogna. Far fewer of those around than shadow dragons or mythical witches of insane power. Amen to that, Tom replied, taking a deep breath. Amen? Baron questioned, clearly expecting an explanation. Don't worry about it. This Dogna, if that was it, what would it need to turn a city like that? We have no idea. They're rarely seen, and most stories of those who have seen them can rarely be proven true. My best guess would be some natural source of extreme corruption, though that could likely be themselves. My father, Lord Ashore, theorized it was a combination of a Dogna, a shadow dragon, and a witch. The Dogna provides the corruption, the dragon the power required, and the witch controls the spell, Victoria replied, from her perch atop Baron's back. He has exactly no proof for that, though. Great, so we have steampunk skyships in the hands of people with corruption-based weapons of mass destruction. Hold a criff, Nogga Lord. Thanks for your time. I think I'm going to go pretend none of this has happened and get drunk enough to be carried to bed. Take care. Remember, fight with honor, one of the sergeants on Baron's back shouted out with a laugh. Baron simply nodding at Tom. Victoria gave him a salute as the dragon turned around and set her running and jumped into the air, kicking up muddy dirt high enough Tom had time to follow it through the air. Damn. War stories were not a new thing to Sapphire. She had heard plenty from trade escorts or other random visitors who came to the keep. Puma also had quite a few history books detailing epic battles, some true, many probably not. At least not entirely. But actually listening to an ancient dragon who had been there was quite different. Most of the people sat in an awestruck silence as the dragon finished. The people of Deriva looked like they had seen a ghost, many glancing around quickly as if they had no clue what to do now. Sorry to put a damper on the mood like that, the dragon went, clearing his voice and raising his head up high once more. That is all history. Old history at that. Should there be the need, I'm sure it can be done again. Today let's celebrate that it might be us who have a weapon like that on our side next time. Sure thing. Luke, the captain from Deriva, let out in a meek voice, a few seats down from Sapphire. Anyway, I think I have to make my excuses. I'd best be heading for the vault. Crew aboard, please. Baron went as he got up, turning to walk clear of the congregation that had formed around him, going ever so slowly as to give people a chance to get out of the way. Tom had gotten up and trotted along with the big red in a rather hurried step. I guess he would have a lot of questions now, wouldn't he? Saf mused, gesturing at Tom. Fingers crossed the guy can figure out a way to kill something like that. Or build it, Micah replied with a shrug. I still can't believe Baron had been lying for so many years, only for him to tell us now. Shit is going to be going down soon. I just know it. Not yet, though. Tonight we still have very important work to do. So, do we drink to celebrate that victory? I guess you could call it. Or forget it all happened so the Inquisition doesn't kill us all. Micah went as he got up, giving Saf a courteous hand. Looking down the table, she took note of all the terrified faces gathered around. At least the children weren't up for this one. A little bit of both couldn't hurt. You aren't leaving for the vault? Saf replied, taking his hand, knowing full well he was staying. Nope. Yet another perk of my special assignment, Micah went, with a devilish smile, as the Tory walked by, heading for Baron. Look at you, prancing around like some Prince Charming, the sergeant went, giving Micah a jab to the shoulder. Grandpa! Micah shouted after the sergeant, receiving a rather rude gesture for his efforts in reply. Don't mind him, I'm fairly sure he's just jealous. I heard Tom try to teach the farmer guy how to make human beer. Yeah, that's right, Seth replied, realizing. We need to try that stuff, Kilsner or whatever he called it. The tables were put back to their original places, Saf and Micah helping out as Raoul brought out the special barrels. They were set down at the ends of the tables, more being brought out from the stock they had purchased back in the capital, along with some of Raoul's small regular supplies. Marks were quickly passed around to everyone at the tables. More than just Saf and Micah were eager to not only try the selections, but but likely also needed something for their nurse following the evening story. The Nook and Lady Deriva wasted no time with getting into the wine they had brought, looking like they needed it, especially kind old Lady Deriva. Nanook had talked about how the battle for her home had really done a number on the old woman. Sav hadn't been able to tell after she had arrived for the festival. It would seem it was starting to show through now, though. The rest of the Deriva people had congregated and were vividly discussing things amongst themselves, voices starting to get agitated. Think they're going to be okay? Sav questioned as she put a bench in place. Eventually. It's not like Baron not to think things through like that. The old guy must be struggling right now, even if he'll never admit it. Hopefully some good drink can fix it. Sav went as she got comfortable. Mark started being passed down the table, taking her attention away from the bickering people. Must suck to be on Baron's crew tonight, though. Yup, then again, Glorious people miss the food. I think I'll get some leftovers, though. And then there's lucky you who gets all of it. Come now, that's hardly why I'm lucky right now, he replied, placing an arm around her waist and setting a mug down in front of her. Is it okay if I sit here? Ray questioned from behind Sav, who turned her head around to greet her. Sure, we'll scoot up a little closer. I'm sure Micah wouldn't mind that. Sav replied with a smile, as Micah made room, shuffling a bit further on the bench. Ever had human beer? Sav questioned rhetorically, setting a mug down for Ray. Can't say I have, came the delicate reply, as Ray eyed the mug. Excellent, me neither. Cheers, Sav replied with a chuckle, picking up a mug herself and clinking it together, first with Ray, then Micah. Cheers, both of them replied, taking their first experimental draught. Well, that's certainly different, Sav went, looking down into the mug. So fresh and bubbly. It's cold too? Did they cool the barrels? Yep, Esmeralda replied, sitting down opposite them, Kakashi sitting down too. Use the stuff left over from the cakes. Tom insisted. I like it, Ray went, taking another sip of her mug, clearly savouring the interesting new drink. How'd you put bubbles in ale? It's not ale, it's beer. You put it under pressure as it ferments, Micah clarified. It's a little lighter if you ask me, but it's very refreshing. He took another, deeper draught, the foam sticking to his snout, making him look more than a little stupid as he tried to lick it clean. Definitely had worse. Oh, really? Sav chuckled before glancing down the table, spying Tom taking his first draught before he'd even sat down. He looked to Raoul and gave the farm/brewer a thumbs up, and an approving nod as he smiled. Well, Tom seems pleased, so I'm guessing that's how it's supposed to be. Never had bubble beer before, Ray went, also looking down at the human as he sat down with Jackie. Ha, that's what we're calling it, not the dumb forget it. It's now bubble beer, Sav cheered out, raising her mug. Ray and Micah joined her. Esmeralda also joined him once she had a taste. Come on, hubby, we have to raise the mood a little, she went, poking Kakashi. Her husband dutifully joined in with a little chant, and Surly started the spread down the table. Bubble beer, bubble beer. More and more people joined in. Sav laughed at Tom as he heard them, face-palming for a second, before raising his own mug, joining them in the chant with them, clearly trying not to laugh. Thank the gods for good distractions, Sav mused, shaking her head as she took a deep draught of the bubbly liquid. I'm getting absolutely smashed tonight, that's for damn sure. Well, whatever makes them happy, Tom mused as he raised his mug. Bubble beer. God damn it. Silly name or not, it was the first Pilsner brewed in a different world. It wasn't brilliant if Tom was being honest, but it was good enough to invoke memories of home. That seemed like such an awfully long time ago by now. It had only been around half a year, and yet more things had happened during that time than he had ever thought possible. Death and destruction, battle and murder. Enough political bullshit to satisfy him for a lifetime, not to mention all the insane discoveries they had made. The machine shop, all the farming work, and he'd best not forget Jackie, who even now was doing her best to get some people together for drinking games, likely aiming to get properly white girl wasted for once. Tom had seen the Dragoness party before, but the drinks certainly flow more easily tonight than ever before, that was for sure. Part of that might be down to the new beer, which was certainly a success, combined with the secondary purpose of the berry lemonade, that being serving the people of the keeps the first sweet alcoholic drink many of them had likely ever had, at least in decent quantities. It was quite popular too. They had rationed it to 2 mugs per person for tonight, and it looked like they were still going to run out. Even then, it was still pricey for them to hand out this much. Jackie's drinking game had been a simple dice game, insisting that it was far better than the deception-based mayor that Tom was used to. She favoured chance and strategy to line. Tom didn't do particularly well, but that was hardly a detriment in the drinking game. Tom only played for a few rounds, though, before looking over to Jarex, who was busy chatting with Tiguan and Grevy again, now that Baron had left. It would probably be a while before Glira got here, so now was as good a time as any to go get his surprise. Tom had feared the dragon would simply lay down and be done with it when he got his gun, Or perhaps only agreed to do the work that led to more ammunition being manufactured, but no. If anything, he had got more and more enthusiastic about helping out where he could. He had even let Ray use one of his wings for drying clothes at one time. He did fervently claim that he had no idea she had done that though, and that he was just lazing in the sun, sleeping, having been unknowingly exploited. At least that was the excuse when Webster caught him and had started asking questions. Tom felt that behaviour was in need of a reward besides the cake, and all the other dragons had gotten cake too after all. He had run the math, and that around 25 to 30 litres of pure alcohol should do the trick, which would be thinned out of course. And with all their latest discoveries, not to mention the sheer muscle power available to the keep these days, his quad bike hadn't been doing much driving, nor was there any sign of that changing anytime soon. Despite that, they had been running the still as often as they could manage, to the point that koollman had been put to work making additional barrels for the results. In fact, they had enough ethanol to drink every dragonette here under the table several times. Hell, they could manage that with only the beer. But they had enough to give Jarrex a really fun time if he wanted to. It was definitely not because Tom really wanted to see a drunk dragon. There was no way that could not be hilarious, even if it might be a touch dangerous. Tom was hoping they wouldn't suddenly need all the precious fuel anyway, now that a lot of it had been turned into drinks. He got up, leaving Jackie to a drinking game after promising he would be back to take part, and went and fetched the special barrel together with Rolf. "Are you sure this will work?" the farmer had questioned as the two of them set about hefting the barrel down the stairs. I asked Baron a while back if he had ever gotten drunk. He said yes and set about telling a lengthy story about some celebration, so they do drink, Tom responded, cursing that he was the one currently walking backward. And Zarko said Jarrex had never been drunk before. Apparently he didn't want to spend the money. It would take like half a ton of beer to do the trick. This is a lot more efficient though. Right, but he's a dragon. Isn't he like the weight of 100 people or something? Ralph tried again, still not sounding entirely convinced. Who has never been drunk before? I have a guess at how much it will take, but I think we have enough here. Otherwise we are going to have to go get another barrel of something else. Right. Let's hope he likes it then. Indeed, Tom replied with a grunt, as they made their way slowly down the stairs, Tom cursing that he hadn't tried to convince Jackie to come along. They made it back to the party and rolled the barrel over to where the 3 remaining dragons were residing. They propped up the barrel, patting the lid, and looked up at the dragons, but turned to look at the 2 rather small dudes. Jarrex, you magnificent bastard, I present to you a barrel of stuff that probably won't taste good, but by the gods it should see you completely plastered. Tom went in his best salesman's voice, patting the barrel. Fuck yeah, I remember the plural for the gods and everything. What stuff exactly? Jarrex questioned in a rather suspicious tone. It's alcohol. We thinned it down to somewhere around 40 to 50%. It won't taste good, but it should do the trick if you want. The barrel is yours. There's enough to get you very drunk, or probably a nice buzz if you want to share it. That's up to you. Isn't that, like, very expensive? Jarrex questioned, eyeing the barrel. So is most of the stuff we have served tonight. We made most of it here, so this is our hard work, which means we get to enjoy the benefits. Consider it a bonus or something. Oh, thank you, the dragon went, clearly rather surprised and not quite sure what to do in this situation. Leaning down towards them, he sniffed the barrel, gaining a rather funny expression for a second before straightening back up. It smells like medicine or something. I guess that's not entirely untrue, Tom went with a shrug. You want it now or maybe later? No, I want to try. I've tried beer before. Never had enough to get drunk, though. You two want to try too? Jarrex questioned, glancing at his 2 old friends. Definitely, Gravy was quick to answer, though it smells like it'll be more of a test of your guts than a pleasant experience. Tom had to agree with her on that point, at least somewhat. The 2 dragons looked at Tiguan, who seemed even more unsure than Jarrex. I mean, if you're offering... Oh, thank you very much for the cake earlier. That was delicious, Tiguan went, bowing to Tom, who just held up a hand to dismiss him. Now, as friend, happy you could be here. Sounds like you deserved a reward after your work at the Reaver, too. Not really. They have been very kind, at least after the first few days, maybe a week or 2. But now they have all kinds of things for me to do and help out. Fucking hell, happy he was allowed to help. Hey Tom, can we keep him? Tom mused to himself, looking at the big black puppy, who could melt steel beams. Glad to hear you are enjoying yourself. Now I don't actually know how best to serve this. You have any ideas? Tom questioned, looking around at the 3 dragons. Bucket, maybe? Jarrex responded, Grevy giving a shrug. The biggest shot glass in history. I like it. I'll go get 3 buckets, Tom replied, trotting back towards the keep to get the glasses, so to speak. Oh, this is going to be hilarious, he mused to himself, quite happily coming back down the stairs just as the sun began to set on the horizon. I guess Glira will be here soon too. Oh well, we certainly can't afford to drink her under, unless it tastes like nothing. Who was your first girlfriend, Jarrex? Saf questioned, trying to wipe the shit-eating grin off her face. She liked this game Tom had cooked up. So simple and informative, if a little embarrassing at times. Tom put on some quiet music for them as they sat by the fire to play their little game. Morena, Jax replied, looking away. Saf guessing the dragon would be blushing bright if he could. Oh, please, you're at best slightly good friends, Grevy countered, not sounding very impressed with the reply. We made it official, Jax protested. Yeah, you did, and it lasted all of nearly a month. Still counts. Jarix, your question? Tom interrupted. The human also haven't gotten rather merry by now. Liquor sure was effective at making people not worry. Grevy, first kill? Jarix questioned. Ah, fuck you. You know that one. They don't. Darkling fucked up a dive and smashed itself on my face. Jarix and Tiguan certainly had a laugh at that one. Grevy, though, was clearly not impressed. Diggs, what about you? Finally had enough to tell us about how you grew up? No, the Black Dragon replied, grabbing hold of the bucket again. Would you stop that? Jarix grumbled, scowling at Grevy, who didn't look terribly worried about it. That's the third time now. What? I want to know, the Green protested. It's okay, old boy. Maybe that's enough for tonight. Lieutenant Gillis went, giving Tiguan a pat on the leg. It's fine. I get to try more of this, Tiguan replied, as he emptied the bucket down his throat without any fuss. That had gone away after the first few buckets. He did hiccup, though, which Tom found quite funny, chuckling until he considered just what might come out of Tiguan's mouth. Nothing did, though. The dragon just scratched the back of his neck and hiccuped again, before looking down at Tom. What about you? Where did you grow up? Why did you come here? Oh, this should be good, Seth thought, leaning back. She'd heard it before, but having drunk Tom try to explain that one to a drunk dragon should be funny. Well, I grew up in the countryside, in a small home, just me, Mum and Dad. I know that sounds strange to you, but that's how we do it. It was a good life. I tried so many things growing up. Most of them stupid. I was bullied a bit. Eventually I ended up in the army, then I got bullied a lot, he went with a chuckle, before turning more somber. Some of you know the story about how that ended. After that, I just couldn't find joy in life anymore. Dad died, Mum got sick. Both of them had this brain thing that makes you forget and make things up. It's horrible. I tried motocross, parachuting, and everything else I could think of that was exciting and fun. I have no clue what any of that is, Yeld submitted. Tom just chuckling and Tiguan clearly paying close attention. I know. It didn't work anyway. I was just doing it just to do it. Don't worry, I'm getting to a point. I tried everything I could think of, and it all just seemed to get boring after a while. Either that or it would have killed me eventually. In that sense, maybe this wasn't much of an upgrade, but I've never felt more alive than here. Sure, it's a shit show at times. I came because I had nothing better to do, and I sure as shit don't want to go back. Saf just had to take that in for a second in a half-drunken state. Fuck, he's only good at speeches when he's drunk, she concluded to herself, trying not to chuckle. That would be very disrespectful. Well, that was a bit more than just how did you grow up, Jackie chuckled, punching him on the shoulder. No, it just took a few years, Tom replied with a laugh that sounded rather fake. And you still haven't. Oh, please. You, grown up? Jackie protested. You're a big kid playing pretend. Oh, yeah? What about you and Miss Racer over there laying out a track she made for herself, and then you come and complain to me it wasn't fair? Tom replied with a more genuine laugh. I went on any track that's got a few twists in it, Saf protested with a smile, knowing she was right, and happy that Tom seemingly hadn't gone too depressed by the question. Very well then, Sapphire Island. Who was your first boyfriend? Tom clearly looking more at Maiko. Oh, there were plenty who tried back in the day. Some of them got a chance, not many lasted. Trying not to snigger, she leaned on Maiko, and felt him squirm a little. One wanting kids, another couldn't keep his hands off one of the other racers. One thought I would make a great stay-at-home woman to pamper him all day, for some reason. There was a major once who was quite nice, but he was a bit too old and always away on deployment. We called it quits after a year. A major? Maiko questioned, seemingly not quite believing that one. Sure, he was a nice guy and all. Didn't quite cut it, though, Saf replied, looking back at him. Don't worry, little guy, you ain't here for the depths of your pockets, she went, tickling the tip of his snout with her tongue. Oh, come on, I know you have a spine, show it a little, she sighed, looking back to Tom as he interrupted that little moment. She just pushed up a bit more against the corporal. He didn't need to know that she was lying through her teeth. I guess I'm not the only one oversharing tonight, Tom chuckled. Quiet, human, or I'll ask you again, Saf replied with a laugh. Oh, so you want to know my darkest secrets? Tom replied, trying and failing incredibly hard to look scary. Nah, I probably won't get it anyway, Saf replied with a chuckle, looking around. She was a touch annoyed that Ray hadn't joined them. Then again, that was maybe smart. There are a few people here who didn't know her after all. Hey, Maiko, Saf went, turning her head halfway back towards her comfy backrest. What number am I? Number? Maiko replied, at least pretending to not understand. You know what I mean. You are a soldier, don't be shy. No clue. Micah replied with a snigger, taking a deep draught of a mug of wine. Most of the people around the fire had a laugh at her expense, and she gave him a playful shove with her leg. Damn you! Seth had to reluctantly give him that one was funny. I guess that's what I get for wanting him to show a spine. The sun had set by now, and there wasn't much of a moon, leaving only the fires and torches to light up the evening. To Saf, it was all rather cosy, even if they were all starting to huddle around said fires to keep warm as they kept the questions coming. The 3 young dragons were slowly working their way through the barrel, its contents being mixed with water in the buckets. Gravy called it quits after a few buckets, leaving just Jarrex and Tiguan. Seth had taken Tom's word for it that the barrel would likely only be enough to get Jarrex drunk, but soon enough both Jarrex and Tiguan were slowing rather badly, Jarrex even looking rather unsteady on his feet. Okay, now that's hilarious, Tom laughed out, as Jarrex tried to pick the bucket back up, missing a few times and grumbling in annoyance, to the point Gravy and Tiguan both agreed he sounded almost like Baron. It wasn't easy for the dragons without a thumb, but the clawed toes of his foot could wrap around most things well enough to pick them up. As Jarrex put down the now empty bucket, he perked his ears, starting to look around. Yo, Tigs, you hear that? I do, Gravy replied, getting up as Tiguan looked around, seemingly confused. Tom just had the time to start growing concerned as Gravy stood up, turning to look out over the rolling meadows. Oh, someone thinks she's funny, the Green went, sitting back down again and shaking her head. Glera is trying to scare us, going low and slow. Sure it wasn't you, Jarrex. She might have pulled it off without beating your wings. Huh. Nah, Tiggs is the king of stealthy flying, you know that. It has come in handy before, Tiguan replied, the alcove seemingly having loosened him up a bit, even if he still didn't look entirely happy. It didn't take more than a few seconds before Glera swooped overhead, swinging around to come down to land. She came down hard, looking around at them expectantly with an evil grin on her face, which faded after a second or two. Oh, come on! Not even a little? The larger blue questioned, looking down at them. I would have thought you were deep in the horror stories by now. Heard you coming, Gravy replied with a smirk. You should fly against the wind when trying to be stealthy, Tiguan replied, slowing a bit. Are you drunk? Glera questioned with a look of disbelief. Yup. Jarrex let me share in the barrel. Tiguan went with a happy, if rather dopey expression. Where the hell did you get hold of that much ale? We're in the middle of nowhere. Also, what do you mean, barrel? It takes a lot to get us drunk, even kids like you. I'm no kid. Well, I'm yours. You know what I mean, Jarrex replied, sounding rather irritated, also struggling a bit with his sentences. Tom gave me a very nice barrel of this clear stuff. It burns like hell, but it sure does the trick. It doesn't burn for me, Tiguan questioned, peering down into the barrel, shutting one eye. It's the same stuff we're getting, right? Tiguan, your throat is made to handle acid that can eat steel. It's not going to burn now, is it? Jarrex protested, trying to point at Tiguan with his bucket. Yours can handle lightning, Tiguan protested, still peering into the barrel. Saf got an idea now that Glera had arrived, looking at Tom. You got the music box control thingy? Yeah, Tom replied, getting out his phone. It's playing from the phone right now. We've been too busy playing games to do any dancing. I think it's time, she went with an evil chuckle, pointing at Fengi. I got it, Tom replied, filling a bit with his phone as Glera was busy trying to convince Jarrex to give her a bucket full too. The music eventually switched over to something more up Fengi's street, the coppered Huntress cheering as she got up and did a quick stretch. Saf chuckled to herself as a slowly going ring of people got up to join her. The game had gone on for a while after all. It was time for a change of pace. It would seem people had calmed down enough after Baron's story to let loose a little, or at least gotten drunk enough to not care. No, you can't have some. It's mine. You can buy some in the capital if you want. Tom says they can make this too, Jarrex protested, as he also plodded over to where Fengi had already set about showing up the competition. No, excuse me, I have to go express myself. Glera just stood there slack-jawed before sitting down seemingly defeated, looking to Grevy and the rather dopey-looking Tiguan. What the hell has gotten into him? I think alcohol, Tiguan replied helpfully, holding up a foreleg. Fucking hell, what about you two? You get any guests for showing up here? We had a nice cake earlier, Grevy replied with a snigger. Oh, come on, Glera protested, laying down her head as her crew disembarked. Saf looked at Dakota, Tom and Nessie, all currently busy on the dance floor. Tom was currently held over Jackie's head as she pirouetted with him until he looked green. I'll go get her cake, Saf let out, loud enough that she was sure the audible heard her. Glera turned her head to look at Saf, a smile creeping onto her face, her tail doing a slight flick. Yeah, we didn't forget you, Saf mused. She patted Bo on the shoulder as she passed her. Would you mind getting the last tip from that fire over there? Check that it's done first, she went, before turning her attention to Glera's crew. Hey, Major, can you spare a few to help me get some chow for you lot?